All right, hello everyone. Thank you for bearing with this weird kind of different asynchronous stuff for Tuesday, April 5th. So what this video is going to be is it's going to be a short under 15-minute kind of walkthrough of what the handout and PowerPoint that you also have access to are going to be about. And so what we would have done in an in-person class is some stuff working on thesis statements. And hopefully we are still going to have some time to do that on Thursday, but this is going to give you a start over what we would have done. So you're going to have a head start once we get going. So what you're going to need for this is first you're going to pull up the handout and you're going to do your 3 good things. And then what you're going to need is your 2 writing assignments that are working towards Project 3. So the ones that have been locating and summarizing 3 sources, and the ones that have been synthesizing and bringing together those sources with your opinion. And you're also going to need a way to fill out the handout and write stuff down, so you can do it on your phone, on a laptop, you can edit the document, or you can physically write it on a piece of paper and take a picture. So you'll turn these in by Thursday morning. So, what you're going to do, you have your sources, you have some thoughts about them, and what you're going to start with is just look at those 3 or more sources. If you have more, just pick 3, and assign each of them a number. So how much do you agree with it, and why? And just do a short response there. So 1 is, I don't agree with it at all, and 5 is, I agree with it completely. This author has said everything that I want to say. So, for example, if I would use the same sources for this 3 Little Pigs imaginary paper that I'm working on here, I've got my 3 sources. So 1, Yvonne Pierce, who says the story is about capitalism. 2, Fazio and Eck, who say the story is about God and Satan. And 3, John Sheka, I don't know how to say that, but who says the story is about the subjectivity of truth and human experience. So if I'm going to rate these on this 1 to 5 scale, I would give Pierce a 5. I would say, yep, I think this is making a really solid point, and I'm going to just take some notes on kind of why I think that. So that those ideas of like larger forces that can disrupt your life, particularly in terms of like money or stability, those have been around for a long time. I think she's got a lot of stuff to back up that claim. For Fazio and Eck, I might say, well, I mostly agree. I kind of lose what they're talking about a little bit towards the end. Are we talking Old Testament or New Testament? But it's like a solid point. And with this 3rd source, I might say, well, he makes a really great point about this particular retelling of the 3 Little Pigs that his article focuses on, but in terms of the actual story, I'm not quite sure I see it that clearly. So that's how I would rate my sources. You might take a moment here and pause and kind of look at yours, take some notes, see what comes to mind. Perhaps you've paused, perhaps you haven't, but just take a moment and look at your answers. And once you've finished, if you have any rationale, including ideas like it's just a story or they're overthinking, this would be a good opportunity to try out this mindset I'm going to present here now. So just a different way of thinking about it, because Project 3 is asking you to think this deeply and kind of see what else is going on besides just the story. So think about this, right, as maybe a way to get into this other mindset. So think about a time you got really, really upset about something small. So like you dropped something, or you spilled something, or you got angry at someone over something that didn't matter. But you knew you weren't actually that upset about what happened. It was about something else. Right? So you argued with somebody, and then later you yelled at somebody else over something really small. Right? Or you had a terrible day at work, and then when you got home, you took it out on your family. If this has never happened to you, think about a time when it happened to someone else, someone you know, something on TV. And so this situation can kind of be compared to what Project 3 is asking you to think about with stories. So, for example, I'm a writer. I never go into writing anything saying, I want to tell someone this particular moral. or saying that I want to get at any of these ideas here of like, oh, this is about capitalism or this is about good and evil. I'm just writing a story. I just wanted to tell someone just something to entertain them. But for example, I once wrote this story about a girl and she's in high school and it's Valentine's Day. I just wanted to tell this story. And later I showed it to my friend. And after I had let her read it, she said, do you think that the fact that you knew you had to move around the time you wrote this, did that have any impact on it? And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? It's just a story about Valentine's Day. But she looks at this story and she says, well, I see a lot of stuff that seems like you in it. I see this main character who's trying to control this situation when all of this stuff that's outside of her control, like she's going to graduate, she's going to have to move and find new friends. I see all of those things as part of this story, and I know those were going on in your life at that time. And I had no idea that stuff was in there. But all the stuff that was going on around me, so knowing I had to move, the pandemic, all of that, all these things that were out of control, they kind of worked their way into the story without me being aware of it. So, whichever anonymous person wrote The Three Little Pigs, they were probably not trying to tell us or show us anything about capitalism. What we're interested in is all that other stuff that was going on around them that has gotten its way into the story. That's what scholars are looking at when they're writing this stuff. They're kind of looking at how all this other stuff gets in there and how it shapes it and influences it. So for another example there, if you're thinking of anything you read in high school, which might have been Ernest Hemingway or it might have been F. Scott Fitzgerald, we're kind of thinking about that time between two huge world wars, where it's kind of, the world has changed, and there's this feeling just culturally of like nothing matters, life is short, everything's out of control, and all this stuff gets into the books, even when these books are telling you these romances, or they're telling you stories about running with the bulls or whatever they're doing. So this would be an ideal opportunity here to look back over your answers. If there are any spots where you're talking about they're overthinking or that's, it's just a story, that's valid. The author was just telling a story, but what this is asking us to do is take a moment and kind of look at everything else happening. So, you've got these sources you agree or disagree with, you kind of have them evaluated. And what we're going to do now is kind of narrowing in a little bit. So pick the one you agree with the most. If you agree with them all equally, you might just pick the one that interests you most, and explain in 3 to 5 sentences why you agree with it so much. Then what you're going to do, once you've finished that, is pick the one you agree with the least, and explain in another 3 to 5 sentences why you disagree. And as you make these points, you might find yourself branching out from the author's original ideas and bringing up points and examples these authors didn't use, which is fantastic. That is great. So, what I might say, so if I'm responding to this source, that the story is about capitalism, and I've got my original notes there, I think this is a solid point, I can also say, I also agree with this, because the wolf does not bother the pigs when they're together with their mother. It's only when she sends them out, and here I bring up a quote from the story. I'm bringing that in here as well, because she didn't have enough to keep them, that their problems arise. So money here becomes kind of the source of the problem, the inciting or thing that starts the story and gets it going. I also observe here that the story criticizes the first 2 pigs who want to build their homes out of the first materials to hand. Though one thing that I want to raise as a question is, why is it bad that they want to have houses? Why are they getting criticized for trying to create these shelters that seem solid enough until this wolf who wants to eat them comes and attacks the houses? We can also say the wolf also tries to lure this 3rd pig out by tempting him with material objects. Money and spending and purchasing become a big part of the wolf's traps. And these are ideas that are all kind of revolving around these ideas of capitalism and money and things like that. So, now this would be a wonderful time, if you have not already, to read over this website that's posted in modules, 5 Ways of Looking at a Thesis. And the most important part of that, what we looked at briefly on Thursday, was this right here, which is the magic thesis statement format. And that is, by looking at your main theme, we can see kind of a summary of your main idea, which most readers don't see. And this is important because, and then your argument. So this is a little easier to understand in action. That website gives some really good examples. And what we're going to try to do is write 3 possible thesis statements. So just kind of get ideas going and see as many as you can write. And you can do more than this if this is helping you brainstorm, but we're going to try to get to at least 3. So using this format and using my notes from back here with kind of why I agree with this source, here's how I might put these ideas into this format. So by looking at, and when I look at that whole quote, I say, okay, this is all about money, the 3 little pigs. That's my first point. So by looking at the use of money in the 3 little pigs, we can see that, and then I move into like a big generalization kind of what am I looking at. So we can see my biggest point here is that the story is criticizing capitalism. And then this is important because, and then why does this matter? And then this is the part that you won't always have at this stage. And this is why we're doing thesis statements here, because this is important and can help you form the rest of the paper. So I took a couple minutes and looked at it and said, okay, well, this story is giving us all these face value messages about the value of working hard as an individual and being enterprising, while it's also kind of really being very critical of these systems of money and power. And so that becomes my third point. So this is important because this criticism undermines the message the story tries to send about capitalism being an enterprising citizen. So you're just going to give this a shot. So try to do 3 thesis statements, one based on the source you agree with most, one based on the source you agree with least, so whichever ideas arose there, and then free choice, just any other idea that's been floating around for you. So just give this a shot, and then on Thursday what we're ideally going to do is have some time in class to have other people look at these, get some feedback on thesis statements, what sounds interesting to your readers, and kind of get a chance to explain them, talk about them, see them in action. So please let me know with questions. Please come by Zoom if you have literally any questions or issues at all, and I will see you Thursday.